Good evening. Tonight we have the Master of Macabre, the Herald of Horror, the Monster.
I like these titles you come up with. Thank you, sir. Great to be here again and talk with you again. It's the perfect time of year for me. Yeah. I'm a I'm a creator that likes the dark side, that likes the spooky, likes a little horror in my porridge. So
Well, it
yeah.
is your season,
Mm-hmm.
at least until Candy Day comes.
Yep. I'm gonna enjoy it. I'm gonna soak it up, man. The weather's beautiful. The leaves are starting to turn. Got that burnt smell in the air. It's feeling Halloweeny. I'm loving that. And I already got my costume ready. I'm good to go. And I'm putting out another creepy book about a witch hunter. So it's just everything is perfectly aligning here. Okay, for spooky
And
season.
speaking of witches, so I think witches have people have been trying to take them out of the horror category for like the last 100 years, starting with Glenda the Good Witch. They have tried to rehabilitate witches, in my
We
opinion, in the
tried.
wrong direction.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
so, what can how can you make witches scary in 2023?
Um. In The thing that terrifies me about witches and always has. Here's the thing. First of all, I've been scared to death of them since I was a little kid. The right weird things happened, and I saw the right visuals back in the '80s with enough creepy witch encounters and films and movies and books and television, and I was creeped out by them. What scares me about them is that you can see like a vampire usually. You can see a werewolf coming at you, you can see a monster. Like a witch just looks like everyone else. A witch is behind the scenes sowing poison, sowing dissent. They're more than like an overt physical killer. They're in the shadows, secretly casting hexes, spying on people with their familiars. Things like that. There's a creepiness to witches, man, because they're kind of infiltrators of your happy society, you know. That
That's
always
true.
creeped me out. What makes them scary? I mean, for me, the old haggard lady with the claws and the freaking and the horrible spells and the hut full of bones who bakes little kids freaked me out visually. So they got some great visuals, even though they're not as physical.
That's cool. So
They'll eat you.
in your worlds, are witches people who have made a compact with the devil, or are they just kind of like your next door neighbor who has too many cats?
Well, it depends on the story. In the witch hunting book I'm selling, they have definitely they do what I call walking the jagged path, and they go to the dark side
Hmm.
of this world, and they end up becoming. In my world, the witches are much more physical. Once they get caught, it's really hard to kill them. They will go down fighting, and so the people who catch them can't just be good detectives. They have to be very physically adept and able to take down these monsters that they kind of morph into right in front of you once they get caught. That's the way it works in this one story, but it all depends. I mean, it's I've loved the idea. I would write stories about good witches if I thought the story was right. You know what I mean? But
Hmm.
I'm kind of have always had an old fashioned like fire and brimstone puritanical like let's write stories about murdering witches. Maybe because since I was a little boy they scared the hell out of me and this is my little revenge. I don't know. My little way of dealing with it. I don't know. But yeah.
You know, throughout society, right? Horror stories always kind of reflect the fears of the society that they're in. Um, you in years past, there's been all sorts of witch persecutions, especially in Scotland, and we had our own here in Massachusetts. What do you think would be sort of the fear that they embody in modern days?
We are being watched. We are being
Mm.
infiltrated and ideologies that we don't really understand well are being cooked up places and then infiltrating like into schools, children, family life, society in general. Um, To me, it's witches or infiltrators, man, and they are, and when they sow dissent and division, and they use dark. I mean, they're a metaphor for people who really exist. When
Hmm.
women, you know how like men throw punches, but women use words to attack more
Yes.
often than men. So like when women are saying nasty things at you, maybe as you're walking away or whatever. Or we're just trying to be mean to you, or whatever, and they're trying to tear each other. Maybe two mean girls trying to tear each other down in high school or something, if you can imagine. Like
Hmm.
they're casting hexes on each other. They're using words, and we say words that are like spells, and they are there to like manipulate your brain and make you feel bad, which is like a feeling. So it's like a spell. It goes into the air, vibrates out of her off her tongue, goes in the air, the information, you hear it, she says something mean to you, you decide whether or not you're going to let it like affect you, though, you know.
Uh-huh.
That's like, but if you do and you let it affect you, it's hurt your feelings. Boom, she got you with a spell. Like we call it spelling when we spell words for a reason, man. There's a magic to language and words
Ooh.
on our consciousness, and it can, and women like to use it as weapons more often than men. And so it's like that's where witchcraft and spell and when I see a girl like talking crap and waving her hands at somebody, I'm like, she's casting hexes, man. Like right now, that's how I see it. I see women as being all witches, kind of in a metaphoric sense, and they either use their magic for good or for bad. To be
Oh,
honest,
it's an interesting concept.
I
Uh,
just see it happen every day.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Who knows?
So yeah, it's kind of interesting. I guess high school would sort of be like a witches training academy then.
It's a good point. It sounds like a movie in the making. Yeah, it's you learn to either deflect spells and be able to deal with them, or they tear you down and mess you up. And I see people get messed up. I was someone who got bullied a lot in high school, but it wasn't words that got me, man. It was the physical part. It's the
It
gangs
was the
of
fists.
maniacs.
Yeah.
Yeah, all that,
Uh,
all that meant mania. Yeah.
so do you believe in spells and magic in the real world, or just more as
And
metaphor?
it's gonna sound crazy, but as I get older and time goes on, I believe it more as metaphors. How what I'm gonna tell you, but
Hmm.
as time goes on, I start to ask myself, well, what's the difference? Like
Yeah.
if someone says a word and it does have an impact on someone, is that not a spell in a way that has had an impact? Like you could consider that a type of magic if you want. It's not the type that we see visually in Hollywood with the sparkles and the effects and the lighting. No, it's different. But maybe that's what ancient peoples used to see as magic.
Hmm.
When someone could write, we used to see that as magic. When someone is a good storyteller in their tribe back in the day, we would see that as magic. It would make things appear in our minds and make our imagination soar, and before you know it, we're drawing on the cave walls and we're making things more amazing. It's could you, for making things more amazing and inspiring people, is that not a form of magic? So like, yes, more so metaphor. I don't believe in like, no, I'm not a person who believes like bury things in a jar and then that will cast a hex upon your enemies. I'm a skeptic at heart. That's the weird thing about me is I love all this stuff to death. I was raised to love the macabre and
Hmm.
supernatural and all the ghost stories and monsters. Love them all. But at the same time, my mom, who got me into all those, told me none of it's real, and you better be really skeptical because there's a lot of hucksters out there, and they're going to try to trick you and get your money. So
Yeah.
I was raised with a healthy dose of skepticism and just love for all the creepy stuff.
Yeah, yeah. It's an interesting point because if something has an effect, is there a difference between sort of like magic or you're somehow affecting people's brains, hitting like a certain dopamine spot? And I think that just like you said, you got certain coaches who will pump you up and you believe in yourself and therefore you play better. Or there were certain German chancellors who got people to do all sorts of things you wouldn't normally do. Uh,
Exactly.
you know,
Yeah.
I mean, if you said that the people of
Yeah.
Germany were under a spell, maybe there's something to that.
Right. Right. And would they even after the people who said I did it because I had to, would they even admit or claim that they were under a spell in a way. They were controlled. I mean, it's all in how you look at it, like take out magic as we know it in media and
Hmm.
and all that and wizards and stuff, and instead start to look at famous people who were considered magic as people who were magical in other ways that of influence, of inspiration,
Yep.
of art, of writing and storytelling. There's tribes to this day, pardon me, that the highest ranking person in the village is the guy that can tell the best story, which is so
Oh,
crazy
that's
and
cool.
great. Yeah, like he's revered, and I guess he comes out of his hut like, I got another good one for you, everybody. Tonight, gather around the fire, and everyone's like, yeah, party. He's like the Van Halen of his tribe. That's just awesome. I gotta go, visit. But yeah. So I mean, there's people. Once you appreciate the magic of storytelling and the imagination of that, I do think that you could call it a form of magic for sure.
Interesting. So I was taking a look at Kitaru, and I believe it takes place in Japan, in feudal Japan.
Kinda, yeah. I don't really get into the details of it. I just kind of call it haunted Japan.
Okay.
It is feudal. It's not true to Japanese history. And I'm not like on some sort of Japanese history kick or anything. It's kind of like I just want to like a classic samurai swashbuckling tale where he's going from town to town, hunting down a witch, taking it out, and then moving on like a badass into the winds. So it's not about like names of places or you know what I mean, or
Hmm.
or history of Japan or who is leading it at all. It's really just about an awesome setting, which yeah, haunted feudal Japan seemed appropriate.
So when you think of witches, you think of like maybe Shakespeare or Scotland or Spain or maybe somewhere like in the Middle East or,
Yeah.
even like we said before, Salem, Massachusetts. What is it that, you said, yeah, Japan, that's where witches should be?
I'll tell you. Back in I don't know when, like early 2000s, my buddy brought in a new shiny book. It was the what is it? D&D Oriental Adventures
Oh, yeah,
manual.
yeah, yeah.
I think that's what it's called. And inside there was an Oriental style witch hunter class you could play, and I was like,
Oh,
no, these visuals immediately blew up in my mind. Like, what kind of witch do they hunt? And I like loved the visuals. I loved the visuals of maybe like a lady witch in some silken geisha gear, but then with these like sharp bladed fingers, maybe playing a guitar that puts out like an evil spell that like hypnotizes everyone. All these cool visuals came to mind that were very creepy and very fun. And so I started coming up with a character. And so Kitaru was born almost immediately from there. And so he was going to be a D&D character. I never played him or anything. I don't think we ever did a campaign. I think I just created him and then he just stayed in my mind and I had to make a comic of him. Like I had to do it. I got obsessed. And yeah, the rest is history. It's this idea of taking Japanese style visuals for oni and horror
hmm.
and mixing that into how the witches are, making the witches more physical, making their bones made of metal, making their fingers
Oh,
blades, making them breathe fire, making them manipulate their limbs into like weaponry. I mean, it needed to be more than just the classic European old hag from Shakespeare. So yeah, they have the horns, kind of demony style.
oh,
Like
cool.
there's a Japanese, yeah. Like I swear, I feel like when you see them with the hair and the horns, it's a lot like oni masks and Japanese culture stuff we've seen, like in horror
Hmm.
before. I drew from that. I felt like that was staying true to my setting and the visuals I was going for.
So then, are these witches born with like a demon seed inside them, or is it more like they choose to be evil?
Yeah, well, it's interesting in the story. There's a moment where I talk about exactly this,
Ah,
and you'll see in the story two witches actually kind of disagree how witches are made, which is kind of interesting. Um, One witch is like, I just found my own path in the dark, like from bitterness. But she wasn't born bad. She made the choice. She made the choice. But another witch is like, no, like we are we are scarred and beaten and broken and ground into witches. We are battered into witch. Like we are turned into something else through pain and torture, and there's nothing wrong with it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's not a choice. You either like are it or you're not. You know, I don't know. It was like a cool little moment. But yeah, so but in this world, I guess you could say there's a lot of people making the choice to go to the dark side for the power it gives them. Um, and it's you become physically more powerful. You become, witches are very creepy in this world. They're hiding out, up to no good, committing murders, all that good stuff. So it's up to the witch hunters to detect them, hunt them down, and then someone has to slay them because they'll
Of course.
they'll take as many people down with them as they can before. So it's a fun book. You get like detective story meets like ninja action and samurai stuff.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, it's one thing I've noticed other than Black Tiger. You don't really see a whole lot of like kung fu or more martial arts oriented comics these days. So it's sort of nice to see something a little bit different.
Oh, well, that's cool. Thanks. Good to hear that. I appreciate that. That makes me happy. I didn't know that, but that's actually a good point. I can't think of many other orient like martial arts. We got Tiger Blue.
Oh, Tiger Blue. That's the other one.
Yeah. And then we got Black Tiger. Got our two sweet tigers going. That's good.
No
Double threat. And
dragons.
then where's our dragons? I Shotgun Samurai it might be it ish, but I'm not for sure by the quaff, but it might just be more gun action, but he's got some samurai-ish stuff in there. But yeah, you're right. We need more. Let's add. Let's add with Kitaru. Hope people dig it.
Uh, so one thing I was wondering, you've got Monster MD. That was your first one. You've got Terror in the Trenches. Part one is out.
Right.
Kitaru is the third one. Are these all in the same world or the same universe, or are they all kind of separate?
They're kind of separate. Um, I've thought about the Black Terror universe as being kind of like this more superhero driven universe,
Mm-hmm.
but I could see it crossing over with Monster MD possibly. It's not unheard, it's not completely off limits. I used to think it was when I first made them, but now I'm just kind of like, I mean, Black Terror ends up fighting horrifying creatures of the night too sometimes. So the monsters are out there, man. They're out there and hiding in the dark. And so I could see that for Black Terror if he had to run into Monster MD. Whereas Kitaru, I mean, it's more of its own fantastical, over the top world, of
Mm-hmm.
Japanese feudal stuff and witches, and so it feels more separate. Yeah, like its own crazy, violent ninja scroll universe.
That's a classic. Nobody remembers anymore.
You're
It's
right. Well,
just.
you know what's funny is you knew it right away, and a lot of
Mhm.
people that follow me on Twitter seem to be big Ninja Scroll fans. So there's the cult is out there. Let's just say.
Yeah, there's people that remember it, but I think we're all a certain age. We're
You
all
called
that
it.
age
Yes.
right
Yeah.
before MTV sucked.
Exactly. Exactly. No, you're right. You're right. There's that you bring up something by saying that too that I've been thinking about a little bit lately. No one remembers. Um, I feel that way about so many other things too, not just Ninja Scroll. Like
Eh,
you would. There's so many things where I'm like, why don't people remember? Like, why don't they remember that? Why don't they remember this? It's there's something about as I get older, I guess you just have to understand that like human consciousness needs a reboot every now and then, or like a like it's gonna forget important things, and it's up to certain people to help us remember and cultivate and curate that. Pretty
Yeah, plus I
interesting.
think I have this theory that you can only have so many things from any era that sort of
Yeah,
carry on. They become the quote unquote classics.
yeah,
But it's just because we're limited in the things that we can remember. Like if you think about cool cartoons from the '80s, GI Joe, Transformers, Thundercats,
hmm
and maybe you could pick like Robotech and one or two other
I
ones.
love Robotech.
But like, how many people remember like Popples or Ulysses of the 31st century, or Star Blazers or
I love
Gummy
Star.
Bears? Like all that stuff has been memory hold.
Yeah, and yet you go on YouTube and people have like made all these cuts of all the Saturday night or Saturday morning cartoon intros.
That's
Like
true.
people don't want to let it go too at the same time. And so on YouTube it's kind of forever. Do you know what I mean? In
Yeah,
our
yeah.
world back then when it stopped playing it was gone. It was gone. Or maybe I
Yeah,
guess
that's true.
VHS started becoming a thing, but yeah.
VHS, and I mean, you did have like the UHF channels where
Hmm.
they would show repeats. Like, I'm sure I've seen all of Andy Griffith Show and Leave It to Beaver from the 50s,
Me
but
too.
like something right after that period happened where you ended up with like Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon,
Hmm.
Boomerang, and you had some cartoons for a while. But then, when was the last time Inhumanoids was broadcast? You know,
Yeah.
who knows?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. It's going back.
But then something happened. We
Hmm.
progressed a little bit into the 90s, and then I mean, you got Pokemon was popular for a while. Avatar: The Last
Yep.
Airbender was quite popular.
Power
What is there?
Rangers.
Yeah, Power Rangers, yeah. But I mean, is anybody going to remember Steven Universe? Are people are
I don't know.
millennials in 30 years going to talk about it like we talk about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't. I'm saying that, but who knows? But yeah, I don't feel that they did not achieve what the Ninja Turtles achieved
No. No.
with generation after generation after generation loves the turtles for a reason. Um,
Yeah. Well, that, and then there's so many sources. Like, back when we were kids, you had like what, three, four channels you could watch at most. And
yeah,
cartoons were generally on like afternoons from like 3 to 5 and then Saturday morning. And that was it. So like everybody was kind of watching the same thing. I kind of wonder
yeah.
if we're entering a new dark age.
Where what's what's the Dark Age? What's
Well,
this?
just sort of like, after the Roman Empire fell, we don't really consider all the culture that went on, the Holy Roman Empire, the Franks, the Goths, and all those kind of things until you get to like the 1600s. So you sort of end up with about 1,000 years where nobody really remembers anything that was going on. You don't remember the music. You don't remember any plays. People were doing all that stuff then, but nothing stuck. And I kind of wonder if we're entering a new one,
Hmm.
like a new period. Like,
Hmm.
uh, if we want to bring it back to comics, what Marvel or DC series is a is going to be a classic, like from the last 10 years? We could talk about the Dark Phoenix saga. We could talk about
Hmm.
Spider Man. We could talk about forming the JLA and the Teen Titans and all that kind of stuff. But what Miles Morales did some stuff, and is anybody going to remember Kamala Khan? Once they figure out she's not popular, or the company's fold. Like who's going to
Yeah,
remember the last 10 years? All those comics are going to be memory old.
yeah, yeah. It's become the desire to create quality stories has been set aside for hiring a bunch of lame people and putting out lame messaging and but does that mean there's so many comics coming out and I can't read them all, you know what I mean, and keep up with
Yeah.
them all? So I'm one of those artists who's open to the idea that maybe time will tell if something from DC and Marvel slates was actually worth a damn that people will talk about or care about in the future. That's one of those time will tell things. Right now, it doesn't look like I doubt you're getting as much, if at all, or even close to the same quality as you used to get. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so and so what happens? People forget. It's true, because why care about these characters or stories when they don't care about it? They think of it as secondary to being able to go to the press and brag that they hired, a Muslim woman to write a Muslim character is more important than like whether or not this character is good, whether or not
Yeah.
it resonates with people and people can relate to it. So it's become, yeah, time eats you alive, I guess. You know, time doesn't stop eating and eats you alive, and then people forget you. I remember this scene in the movie Elizabeth. Have you ever seen that movie
I might have.
about Queen Elizabeth? Anyway, the Duke of Norfolk is in on a murderous plot, and he gets busted. The Queen, of course, doesn't get killed. And as he's getting busted, he's like, "Whatever, make me a martyr, cut off my head. The people will remember." And the guy doing it just goes, "Nah, they will forget," and just walks out. And the way he said it, Jeffrey Rush, he was just like, "They will forget." Walks out. I'm like, no one talks about Norfolk. No one erects
Yep.
statues to Norfolk. Nobody cares. Nobody says you pulled a Norfolk. Nobody remembers nothing about that dude. He got his head cut off. He was an ass, right? So yeah, it's scary though as an artist watching time swallow all these creations that seem so good, even the good ones.
Yeah, I mean, to some extent, where we are now is almost like where we are with pulps. Where okay, people still have some name recognition for Conan the Barbarian, and maybe if you know who Robert E. Howard was, some of his other ones, but most people don't remember Doc Savage, Phantom, The Shadow, and all this kind of stuff. But since there's sort of a lack of interesting things going on, like I've seen somewhat of a renaissance to an extent of people rediscovering this old stuff. And I'm just kind of wondering, does it take the complete collapse of the I'd say for profit, because that's not the right word. I guess like the mainstream comic companies, in order like to just sort of like wipe the slate clean, and then we can get uh, you know 10, 20 years, people be looking at all these cool indie books being like, dang, where were we?
I I mean, it's happened before, hasn't it? Hasn't our mainstream gone up and then gone down, and then
Yep.
new voices rose up? I mean, this is history talking, not me. So yes, there's going to be. It's not that it takes the collapse. It just takes bad art and story in a business in which you're supposed to be selling addictive stories that make people want to come back. To make people like right now, kids just buy manga too. They see
Mhm.
superheroes. It'd be like how imagine liking Marvel, being a kid liking Marvel maybe in the 60s. You probably would see your dad's old pulp comics and sneer at
Yeah.
them and be like, "Ooh, no, I like superheroes. I'm not into the Shadow, even though the Shadow's awesome." But you know what I mean? So like now, kids who buy manga, they look at our superheroes and they're like, "Yeah, that's my dad's comic. I like this manga that's more hip and teenagery and violent and da da da." So that's where we're at right now. That doesn't mean America can't come back with its own like new great characters and
Oh,
stuff.
sure.
It's just that I feel like too many of us have our mindset on the superhero only and
Yes.
what to do with it. And it's like we need this. I myself as a creator don't worry about that as much. I love superheroes. I'll do a superhero story, no problem. But I do other stuff. I want to do new characters too, and make it interesting. Make comics interesting again on the American side. It's
Yeah,
getting
I've always said that in the 80s, when comic book companies basically cut out all their other titles, especially the horror and the Western and the military comics, like that was
crime.
really the beginning of the
Yeah.
end right there. The 80s
Hmm.
was a fantastic decade, and you had a lot of incredible stories. But when everything went capes and cowls, like it pretty much cut out anyone who wasn't interested in that. Like, my mom would always tell me in the 50s she would read romance comics.
Right.
Who makes romance comics anymore?
Yeah.
And so it's not that women don't like comics. They don't
Yeah.
like superhero comics.
Manga makes
They're
romance comics.
yeah,
Tons of
they're buying
them.
tons of them. Why which to me is sort of one of the more frustrating things about DC and Marvel when they say, "Oh, we want to get more women customers." I say that's a
Yeah.
fantastic idea, but they don't want to see gay Superman. They want to see,
Yeah, they
maybe
don't.
even you could have superhero, but it would have to be like a more interrelationship,
Yes, they did. They
romance like
did a
comics.
book. They did. What is it? What is it? Is it called Spider-Man Loves Mary Jane or Mary Jane Loves Spider-Man? Something like that.
Yeah,
Do you remember that one? For young
I
girls,
haven't read it.
it's a yeah. It was for young girls. It was someone told me their daughter loved it, and it was like young teenage girls, and it was romance side, but still had a little superhero in there, But it was about Mary Jane and her relationship with Spider-Man. The girls like relationship stuff. It
Yeah, and I mean,
so oh,
in my opinion, that's one reason why the X-Men always did so well, is because
yeah.
Chris Claremont always had romance stories going through them.
Yeah, yeah, it was a soap opera that guys and girls could both get into because it had all the
Yep.
human aspects and worked in every single issue pretty much. Pretty brilliant. And to be maintain that for so long like he did, that's amazing. What
Well,
an
I mean
effort.
that we'll never see that again in mainstream comics because they will never let somebody have control of one line for 15 years. Even if it's selling really well, they'll definitely kick them out the door because they don't want them to get too much leverage, which is a
What a
shame.
shame. Yeah, it is. I agree.
Um, so you've I, you probably saw the announcement this week that a bunch of people, along with Jeff Johns, left DC and they're going to start
Yes.
their own. I don't know if it's company or imprint. I was a little unclear about that. What do you think of that overall?
I think it's cool. They're doing Ghost Machine. Them leaving DC like that is historical, and it's a blow to them, and it's scary for them, and it makes you wonder about their
Mhm.
future. And I'm curious to see what they'll do. I hope they don't just stick to superhero. I think they might not. I think they're smarter than that. Some people claimed it was some sort of like a Netflix pitch generator, but I don't believe that. I think these are people who are at the top of their game, and now they're free to tell the stories they want. And there's nothing more exciting than artists who are free to express themselves the way they want, especially after being cooped up in a stuffy, dying organization that doesn't value them anymore. Like it almost resents them for being highly paid and professional and good at what
Mhm.
they do because it stifles the whole ideology of like hiring the new young people who aren't good at things and don't know what they're doing. And I don't know, there's just a weird resentment for people like them. And Jeff Johns has been putting up with crazy crap and taking the fall on tons of things and trying to help them make the movies good, and the movies have been terrible. It's been a mess. It's like
Yeah.
let's see what he does when he gets to do his comics his way, his team. Like it's exciting to see. I'll be definitely checking out what they put out. We'll see. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for on an individual level, this is fantastic for a lot of people, and for me, more people putting out quality books in the indie area, I guess you'd say, is fantastic overall because hopefully people won't just always look at the big two for whatever their products are. But do you think some people say it's big? I don't see it anywhere near as big as like the Image people leaving back in the early '90s.
It's
Do you
not.
think this
No.
will
Yeah.
change the industry at all?
I don't know about changing the industry. Time will tell with that. I can't tell. It's not this. It's when I was a little kid and Todd McFarlane and all them
Mm-hmm.
left. I knew that was big, and I was a kid. I didn't know anything about business. I didn't. I just knew it was the future, and I was there for every single book to pick up the number one of their books and support Image. And it was huge. It was rock star. It was punk. This is not the same. It doesn't have the same gravity and like intensity. But I mean, in the throw when DC's not doing well and this many of the top creatives leave at once, it is a blow. Like it's an impact for sure. I'm sure it's it's like people leaving a sink. It feels like a sinking ship more. Whereas at Marvel and DC, or at Marvel, for all of them leaving like that, there was no sinking ship. They were at the top of their game. They were selling more books than anyone. Totally, more of a that was a rock and roll move. Yeah, I,
For
I
sure.
don't I
Yeah. I
think
mean,
the
that was.
industry will change only if they can make the books that make people come running to buy. So that's why time will tell.
Well, and
Yeah.
that's the one thing that I when I saw this, it sort of threw me off a little bit. Is that they're not forming their own company, they're not doing it on an individual basis. They're going through Image, which
Right.
to me has me a little curious because one of the, I mean, forget the terrible quality that the big two are putting out. One of the other problems with the industry is comic book stores are going out of business, still at an alarming rate.
Right.
Maybe it'll bottom out one day. But the other problem I have is a lot of comic book stores. I mean, I used to live in the Los Angeles area and I went to seven or eight. And I think there was only one that had a lot of indies. And most of the other ones, they just wanted the big two. Maybe they would have some image titles like Spawn, but they weren't even buying all the image stuff. So I'm just wondering, are they going to end up in exactly the same position with low sales because there's
Good
nowhere for
question.
them to sell? As opposed to
Yeah.
like people on our indie side where it's more like a business to consumer pipeline.
Right. Which, oh God, thank God for that. It's amazing. It's changed everything. I don't know what are there plans like we're going to go into the stores and we're going to just make awesome books. And I mean, that's what Image does. They put their books in. I've seen them.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know how it'll work out for them or if they have any plans for like how to like do distribution in a new way or something. I have no idea. I just, I hope the best. Maybe they'll end up crowdfunding.
Maybe.
I would be excited to crowdfund if I were them. Maybe I just like crowdfunding because it's what I do. But it's a good way to like generate hype and get people talking about your book too, without having to pay for a bunch of ads.
Definitely. Yeah, I had, I don't know if you know Kat Rocha. She used to be an editor at Zero One or at DC, and now she's at Zero One Publishing, and they have all their stuff on Amazon. So I asked her, oh, are you guys not crowdfunding anything? And she's like, no, 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 we crowdfund everything, except they have one recent book which is more academic, but they said crowdfund everything because it's great for the community. Because when you're putting out products, people who like you and your work, they kind of want to celebrate with you when this new stuff comes out.
That's
And
great.
I'm wondering if maybe that's something that potentially is going to be missing from this new company.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, what if I definitely know what you're talking about because I get to experience that when my book comes out and gets in the hands. Everyone's like, yeah. So we'll see. I don't even know the other creators on the roster well enough. Whereas back in the
Yeah,
day, the guys who left for Image, I knew all of them and collected their books. So it's like how hard hitting is this team? Time will tell, you know. And are they going to do superhero or are they going to stray away and do something that just blows all
yeah,
the minds? We'll see. Jeff
right.
Johns is a very good storyteller. Pretty
And the other
top of his
thing,
game. So
are they going to do floppies? 22,
yeah,
24 page floppies, or are they going to go for graphic novels? Or
you know, people. I think even Ethan has said this, and I've been releasing my books this way. I think Razor Fist has said this. People in our indie scene are kind of leaning towards what Europe has been doing.
yeah,
Put out a nice graphic, not what they call a graphic novel here or a trade, and give people a nice hearty story and a nice quality cover, good paper, and make them want to come back for more. We've been treat the books as more of a quality item than just like a cat spanker or whatever.
yeah. I don't know. I personally think I'm going to try a high low strategy,
Mhm.
where first I'm going to call it a trade paperback when I come out with mine, and it's going to have like a certain number of issues, but that are each sort of like chapter is 22 to 24 pages long. And then later, I would like to sell a lower quality version at newsprint, but for like a buck 50 or something.
Right.
So you for the people who want premium, the prestige, high quality paper, uh, not just flat colors. I think you can have something for them. And then if you can figure out how to get the floppies in front of people, I think that there's still a market for that low cost entertainment like there was, forever.
I think so. I think if you're writing the right stories, I love
Hmm.
newsprint stuff and pulpy stuff. And I've definitely talked about taking Monster MD and like turning it into floppies, into like different issues. We've talked
Yeah.
about that. So yeah, it's I think that's great. It's fun. It's cheap. It's cost effective. It gives people a lot for their money later too, and it gives people the quality. It gives people the pulp. You know, you cover your bases. It's pretty cool. I don't know. I've never been dreaming of my work in floppies. I'm always talking about other people about doing it for me though.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, you could deal with that.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's more about like, I think, oh, I can't think of his name. The Brightwisers, their company.
Mitch. Oh yeah.
Yeah, when they tried to go into Walmart, I think, I think that they're right and that we need to figure out a way to get comics to be more ubiquitous, that gets comics in front of where kids are going to be. Um, Clearly, it was not a successful venture, but I don't know how can we get libraries to buy comics as periodicals? How can we
Yeah.
get? I mean, Scholastic only has so many spots, and they're going to give it to the big companies who can give them lots of nice kickbacks. But it used to be in gas stations,
Mm-hmm.
CVS,
Mm-hmm.
of course,
Grocery
bookstores.
stores. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but
I get
how do
all mine at
we?
the grocery store, and it was the best part of going to it for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope someone will crack the code. And with
Me too.
everything being digital, it's like you are getting it in front of people, kind of like online, but it's not the same. It's not. It's someone will crack the code. I have no idea. It's how do we make comics cool again? Because
Yeah.
it should be a book you feel cool to like be able to read on the bus or the train. But we're so glued. Our devices have been so intensely designed to be what we read our comics on, even though you shouldn't. It's it's like how do you make someone put down the phone and pick up paper? I guess is the trick.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Yeah.
So recently, there we go. Terror in the Trenches, Volume One came out. So how
Oh,
how has
well,
the response been?
that's great. Look, nice looking book you got there. The response has been positive, positive, excited. People saying it's their favorite book. People saying I did better than Monster MD. People saying they're coming for part two. People saying I did Terror Justice as a character, Black Terror. Just a lot of good things. It's been amazing, man. I'm so happy with it. So whew, I was scared. That fear hit me as I started shipping books. Like, did I do all this for nothing? Type thing. Yeah, it's
As
scary.
you were shipping the books?
Yeah, I was like putting them in, and I'm like, this is the best book I can make because they haven't read it yet. But now that I'm shipping them, I
Ah.
know someone's gonna be reading it soon. So like, it's time for that audience reaction is coming. You know it's coming, and you're like, all right, here it comes, here it comes, here it comes, here it comes, here it comes. And it ended up being good. It ended up being great. So I'm happy.
So with Terror in the Trenches, it's not how would I say? It's not the whole story. It ends. There's going to be a part two. Uh, do you envision it as two-part story or more?
This is a three-part trilogy. The script
Ooh.
is completely done for all three books, and it takes place over the course of one really horrifying night in Black Terror's life. It's not like a bunch of different stories connecting or like three-part. It's basically three parts of like one badass script I sat down and wrote to try to tell the best, most badass Dark Avenger tale I could with Black Terror. And I wanted to bring his character into a different, I wanted to do his character justice. I felt like no one was making him cool, making him interesting and layered, human, giving him a life or anything. He just seemed like, I don't know, seemed like people didn't know what to do with him. So yeah, I wrote this. I realized if I split it into three parts, I could afford to do crowdfund. You know what I mean? It would be cool to do kind of a trilogy for a Dark Avenger story. It just seems kind of epic, and kind of it draws attention to how cool and and badass Black Terror can be. So yeah, it's gonna be I'm gonna be doing book two's already in the works, so we're gonna be putting it out sooner than later, right after Kitaru. So Kitaru is kind of just like a fast little punk rock, quick campaign I want to do, and then I want to get to Trenches too. So
Um, and so one of the things that I noticed about Kitaru too is that you're doing at least some of the art for it, right?
I inked this book and I lettered it, and I did help with some of the
Wow.
colors. Yeah, this was back right before I made Monster MD. I was just a guy who loved making comics and was doing my all to make them as cool as I could. I was printing off the pencils for this on paper at like FedEx Kinkos, and then taking that home and then sitting over a board, breaking my neck, inking it by hand, all these pages. So it was fun, but it was a great learning experience. I've inked, I've loved inking since forever, so I thought it was kind of fun to ink. It was intimidating, but I think the book came out pretty cool. So yeah, there's a lot more of me in this book than normal with the inking and lettering and everything. I recently relettered and rewrote it to perfection to where I'm like, this is a good story. This is solid. This is pro. This is worth publishing. Before I was like, I'm not gonna go back to Kitaru. I'm never gonna publish it. But I showed a few people it, and they were like, hey, I'd buy this. I would buy this as a book. So I was like, all right, noted, noted. But after I started relettering it and seeing it and seeing the pages come out looking actually pretty decent, at least, I was like, all right, this is good. This should be published. This would be cool. So here we are, man. I kind of decided on a whim to do this too. It's kind of a challenge. Let's see how fast I could do a book and a campaign and just make it awesome. We'll see.
So how much did you have to update? Like, or maybe update's not the right word, but revise, re-edit compared to when you wrote it originally?
Well, it was kind of funny because I have the hand drawn word bubbles for this book, which is not something people
Nice.
usually do very often now. So I'm confined to those word bubbles when I rewrite it. Like I'm not going to digitally redo them at all. They're all stuck at the sizes and where they are. And
Oh.
the visuals are the visuals. So when I did this rewrite, it was like kind of a weird Marvel method where I'm like going
Hmm.
in and I'm like changing everything. I thought it was going to be really hard. It ended up being fun. It ended up making the story better. But I ended up changing a lot of lines, man. Like every bubble was up for grabs as far as I was concerned. I was like, nah, that sounds lame. Let's make it this. And so all the jokes are better. Everything hits better. It flows so much better. I'm a much different writer than I was back when I made this.
Yeah, for sure. Did you hand letter it or you let?
I
Yeah, the same
digital,
bubbles,
thank
but
God.
digital. Okay.
Thank God. Woo, yeah. No hand lettering for me, thanks. That would have been nuts.
Uh, so when so you're gonna release the it's gonna fund, I believe, on October
25th.
25th.
Yes.
So you have where is it? There we go. So it's up on Indiegogo, and I saw you're gonna do it on Fund My Comic,
Yes,
maybe.
sir. Yes.
So, like, what's your anticipated um, funding to getting books in people's hands timeline?
I'd like to keep it up for maybe a month or two and then
Mhm.
close out and then go straight to print. The book is 100% done. And
Oh, nice.
so I'm thinking I want this to be a fast, clean, simple campaign. We're going to have books for sale. You can get some of my old books if you want. There'll be a variant cover looks absolutely amazing. And there's also going to be an art book with a lot of my art and design work in it if people are interested in seeing more about me and my stuff, my process, my little world. So yeah, there's all this awesome. This is just a campaign about awesome books. They're all done, ready to go, and they're gonna be printed really quick once we like stop this campaign. And I don't want to run it forever. You know what I mean? So yeah, you're not gonna be sitting around waiting for a book to get done or for it to print forever. I'm gonna say, let's give it like a 2 or 3 month. Like, let's keep it up on. Let's do a 2 month campaign maybe, and then hopefully a month or two after that, I'll be in the printers, and then I'll be shipping it out within a month. So like what, 3-4 months? Does that sound
Yeah, so springish, late winter, early spring, maybe.
nice? Okay,
That's not too
that
bad.
not too bad.
And for people who are interested, they can check out Rise Again Comics,
That's
which
me.
I have to say, I think the last time I had you on, you didn't have the site up, and you just started your Substack, and I asked you that, oh, are you going to make a website? And you're like, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
This is pretty badass.
And now I've got this. Yeah, it was time. I forgot what happened. Something happened, and something went off in my head, and I went, "It's time to make the website." And I need to set up the store now too. That Terror is closing out. Once I close out Terror, I want to launch this online store, so you can come and buy the fabulous merchandise, beautiful books, Monster MD and Terror and stuff, other good stuff, and I'm working on getting the t-shirts back online. We used to use Crypto Fashion, and they unfortunately shut down for a bit, but are saying they're coming back. So I'm hoping to use them again, but right now I can't sell t-shirts like I used to. But yeah, that's where we're at right now. The website is I'm glad it came out so awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely very cool. So, I've seen a lot more people who are doing like simultaneous, excuse me, funding on websites plus crowdfunding sources at the same time. I mean, of course, you got Alterna, but you got like Shane Davis, Nine Lives. Do you plan on doing the simultaneous sale, or it's going to be sort of you fund on the crowdfunder sites and then you'll just sell the leftovers later on?
I guess I'll just fund on the crowdfunders and put things up on my store later. Even though Fund My Comic is offering a pretty sweet deal where if you do a campaign with just them for I think a month, I think like they give you they don't take as much of a fee, which is pretty awesome. Give you
That's
a little
pretty cool.
discount. Yeah. So like maybe I could do Indiegogo and then do like a second chance on Fund My Comic only. I don't know. I was planning on both at the same time, and I don't expect to make tons on this campaign. It's more of a like, let's put out a cool book that's already done. Let's make it awesome. It's Halloween time. It's witchy time, and let's just have fun with it and add to my library. And a lot of people still are digging my work, so let's just run this. Let's not. And I wanted to do a campaign that's quick and like stress free. Not like stress free. Well, nothing is stress free in life, especially not a campaign. But make it fun and easygoing compared to the other big, really intense campaigns I've done. And also they cost lots of money. Whereas this book, like I already have it done. I did a lot of stuff on it. It's not costing me an arm and a leg. So yeah, there's a lot of differences to this campaign I'm enjoying, and the story is kick ass. Kitaru is an awesome character. He's fun. And there's a lot of cool things going on in this book. I think people are going to love. And the rewrite got me jazzed. I actually, I used to look at, how you look at your old work and you're like, oh, good, it's awful, it's a monster. I rewrote this and felt even better about my old work than ever, and realized like, yes, this is sellable. This is a good book. This is something people will dig. This is pretty. The art's good. The writing's. I just love how my pages flow now, compared to the old way that the book used to read. So something's changed.
Yeah, I always like re-editing old stuff because for me, there's nothing more panic-inducing than a blank page. So if I can go back, like kind of forget all the nonsense I was thinking of, go back later, like re-edit. No, I got to rewrite this, rewrite that. But it feels much better when I know that it's just like a small section I got to do.
Right. I don't like. I thought rewriting this was gonna be hell, and I told my friend like I think this will kill me. And then I started doing it, and I was like, this is so much fun and so easy. Like, I want to do this every day. Yeah. So, because if it was just blank and there was nothing there, nothing to work with, yeah, I would just be going, so he says this. You know what I mean? It would be
Mhm.
way harder, way harder. The Marvel method definitely paid off. And just when you know your story inside and out, you can have characters say all these cool little subtle things with some foreshadowing too. It's great. It really helps you out. So yeah, and not looking at the story for years makes you hate it so much too that you can't wait to rewrite it.
Yeah, so you mentioned knowing the characters inside and out. Like, what do you
Yeah.
do to know your characters inside and out?
I put them in a setting and then I try not to be involved and just let them do their thing. Like set them free. Let them be themselves. Uh let them, and one of the ways in which I find them and figure them out is I put other characters in that that will have conflicting desires. And
Hmm,
before
that
you
makes
when you
sense.
rub these characters against each other, bang bang like with your action figures as a kid, but it's the story version of that where they have conflicting desires and it just always brings more out of my characters when I'm like doing mundane tasks in life.
Hmm.
Sometimes I'll fade into like what my characters are doing in their worlds. I wrote this book called Psycho Killers. A lot of times, like when I'm mowing the lawn, I catch myself thinking, like, what are the psycho killers doing right now? And you just it's basically just you enjoying your characters and letting yourself go in their worlds and letting them be free to be themselves, do what they want. But yeah, like I said, also have them conflict with other characters and see what that brings out of them. I find that an interesting way to get to know them. Putting them through hell, um, figuring out what motivates them, what hurt them in the past is a good one. I have this character who's so cold, and then I like came up with this story where in the past he was like the most boyish, like romantic, and of course that got trashed, right? It's just things like that. You get to know them through the pain you give them, I guess.
Yeah. Do you ever do you ever try to embody your characters? Like, do you ever speak in a voice like this character has such and such a voice? Like, do you talk out loud when you're working on dialogue?
Yeah, because it's so much fun and it will make me laugh. It's part of the fun of creation and the joy of writing when you get to have characters that talk really funny. I was writing a character called Henchman, and
Uh huh.
he's the ultimate henchman. His power is that he enhances your powers.
Oh,
He's when he's henching for you, you're doing good, and he gets a little bit of your power too, and he's able to use it to enhance you and help you. And so, but because he's a henchman, like he has to talk a certain way, and he has to be like kind of a cliche, but that's the joke. So like I'm trying to think of like, so whenever he says anything to him, the henchman's just like anything for you, boss. And that's how henchmen typically talk, but he's not and we're in on the joke. So yeah, things like that was making doing his voice was making me laugh recently. Things like that always make me it's part of the fun. These characters need to have funny voices and have great takes that just, then funny things to say. So yeah, you catch yourself doing the voices, or at least I do all the time. I've been obsessed with voices since I was a little kid, and my parents showed me Saturday Night Live and Dana Carvey. It's
those
been
were the
my
best
jam.
years.
Good, I agree. I agree, wholehearted.
Ah, well, there's another institution lost.
And there's another great artist that people don't think about or talk about, Dana Carvey. And he's kind of forgotten in a way.
Yeah, he's like one of these guys who he had that one movie which was, so so. And then
Yeah,
there was the Dana Carvey show that got screwed over by ABC.
yeah.
Like he was sort of the Chappelle before there was Chappelle almost.
You're making a really good point. He kind of was. He broke the rules before, yeah, and took the fall for it when
Yeah.
he had the world eating out of his hand. Did you see that documentary on about his show, the
Oh
Dana
no, there's a
Carvey show?
documentary.
There's a fabulous documentary that you will probably love. I think I saw it on Amazon Prime, and it was about the rise and fall of the Dana Carvey show and about all the rules it broke. And it's got all the people that worked on it, made it happen, all the writers, and it's the whole history of how everything went down. And it's great. It's great.
Oh, that's amazing. That's another guy who, like, in some, when he was on Saturday Night Live, it was right place, right time. But I
Yeah.
think if he were born like 20 years later, 10 to 20 years later, and the
Yeah.
internet was around, like, okay, the Dana Carvey show would have sunk, but he
Yeah.
absolutely could have saved himself and made a ton of money. Netflix specials or just
Yeah.
doing stuff on YouTube.
He's still doing stuff, but yeah, you're right. He's so talented, and it's interesting. The Dana Carvey show. It's that show. People are like, oh God, what a bomb, and then you realize like that show gave us Steve Carell. Like that show gave like all these comedians that are like big monster, big
Mhm.
names that have come and made their mark. Now they were all on that show.
Oh
It's
yeah.
amazing. Yeah, it's easy to forget that. Yeah.
Yeah, he had his heart attack, and then after that, he sort of just never got back to where he was.
Was that Steve Carell or Carvey?
No, Dana Carvey. Yeah,
Carvey. I didn't know he had a heart attack. Oh
yeah,
wow.
he had a heart attack. He had to have a bunch of valves replaced too, or something. Because I
Oh.
think I remember him making jokes that he and Arnold had the same valve replacement.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Arnold, the Terminator edition of the heart
Oh,
valve, T-800.
it's another
That's
guy we
amazing.
lost.
Yeah, not the same hero that I grew up loving.
No,
You know,
no.
not the
Maybe closer to
same.
his father.
Crazy man, crazy times. But it's part of getting older. I think you watch that happen. I think our parents must have saw their own version of this
Oh, for sure.
as they got older too. And your heroes aren't your heroes anymore, and your and the
What was
people
it?
that seem like greater than ever disappear. Even they disappear too. We all do, man. I guess we
Well,
all do.
didn't
That's why I do stories. I like to think that long after I'm gone, someone somewhere could pick up my story and escape for a minute. You know,
you never
and
know.
enjoy it.
The
That
weirdest
would be
thing
cool.
is, it could be 100 years later. How many people just discovering Doc Savage now?
Oh, it's muted. Sorry, what happened? What was that? Or maybe my, sorry,
Oh,
maybe my
oh
headphones
no.
went out for a second. I can hear you. I
Oh,
can hear you.
oh, okay.
Apologies.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, yeah, it could even be 100 years or more later. Like some people just discovering Doc Savage just now, or Lord Dunsty, his works.
Mhm.
You never know.
Well, think of who do we still talk about now? Well, we still have Beowulf. Even we still got
Yeah.
Hercules. You know what I'm saying?
Shakespeare.
We got some things. There's some, and what do they say? They go on forever. We still
Mhm.
celebrate them in these stories, and who knows what stories from today will end up being the new anthems for us that go on forever,
That's true.
that influence us. Yeah.
How many people will pick up Monster MD and reinterpret it, do a more modern version?
Wow. Is it, what a it's such a good tale. I hope people do. I hope people do have fun with it in the future. That would be cool.
So for anyone who's interested, pinned in the chat is the link to the Indiegogo. It's also in the description. So anything else you're up to that we should know about?
Um nah, I'm just about to unleash another awesome campaign. All right, I am gonna close out Terror soon. I'm trying to talk to someone about our big closeout stream.
Nice.
So yeah, but still don't have a confirmation, so I can't announce anything yet. But we're gonna hopefully make that happen soon. And other than that, happy Halloween ahead, everybody. I'm excited for that.
And what's since you're sort of like the Kris Kringle of October until Halloween, what are you going to start doing in November? Is that your vacation time or?
Crying, I cry, I curl up, I eat food with everyone. I sleep. November, oh, I don't know. November is just gonna have to be like sit outside in the nice weather and work more. Enjoy
Nice.
the autumn. Keep it spooky though. Come on. I got to.
Definitely. All right. Well, thanks everyone for stopping by. Von Klaus,
Thanks
author,
everybody.
inker, letterer extraordinaire. Thanks for coming, and hopefully we'll have you back again before too long.
Thank you, buddy. It's always a pleasure talking to you. You're always a good conversation. You always make me think about things, a little deeper, a little bit more. You have great questions. So I appreciate you taking the time and having me on.
Thank you. All right. So, everyone, later this week, Friday, I will be on the Dungeon Delvers channel playing classic Call of Cthulhu in a very bad Bostonian accent. Next Monday, I have John Hervey, author of Black Tiger, and we'll see if we can get the artist Rod Looper to come too. And there may be one or two more guests in between now and Halloween.
Very
So,
cool.
everyone, good night.